Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Craig Vollen. I'm a member of the All Souls Unitarian Universalist Forum Committee. The forum's mission is to afford a platform for the discussion of significant issues, especially those which involve ethical values in the contemporary world, and to promote critical thinking. And the forum has been going on since 1943. So it's been around a long time. This morning, we're real fortunate to have, it's actually a two-part series, the first of a two-part series on soil health and regenerative agriculture and related issues. And our first speakers, or we have two speakers in each of the two sessions. The second one, of course, is next Sunday. The speakers this week are Mark Samborski and Hilary Noonan. And Mark has, well, I'll let Mark explain briefly what he's got going. And Hilary is a sustainable landscaping company. So Mark, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank all the people from the All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church and Forum, because you all are powerful people. As so many people have this power, you all are putting it to use. And I want to acknowledge that and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share. I get the opportunity to introduce a gang actually to you. The gang I call my friends, my associates, the men and women that we get to spend time together and plan on making differences, making a change, taking our unique gifts, putting them together into a pool and see if we can clean some things up, make some things happen, and create a better place that we call Earth and home. So I'm going to deal first of all with some of the challenges I see from my observations as a businessman, as a community leader, as a minister, and as a father, grandfather of the future. And I think one of the things that we want to do for sure is heal the soil, but there's a lot of obstacles that are going to be, in my opinion, have to be handled first. Just some recognition, just some understanding that there's so much more going on in repairing the soil. If it was just a matter of repairing the soil, we could do it fast. But my thoughts are that we're dealing with some deep challenges. Well, one of the things I see as an obstacle to repairing the soil and creating a better home, if you will, is this: we have this allure for the distant. We have this allure for the untouchable. And if you look around, you'll see people like in this picture who are captivated by the things that are way bigger than we are. They're way out there, and they speak volumes, and they impact our lives daily. However, they were set in motion not by us, but maybe for us. And to get this allure and to get this chase on something that's way bigger than us, I'm not sure is the best approach to handling the things that are close, the intimacies that we have as humans, the things that we touch, smell, taste, embrace, sleep next to, or run away from, if you will. These character issues are what I'd like to bring up as a setting for the challenge that we have in repairing the soil. I call these actions that I see around me as a businessman and as a community leader, as a chasing of the wind, if you will. It's not something that is easily grasped. It's not something that we can really have control over. My thought is that we start turning our thoughts to the things closer to us, turning our exploits, our financial investments, our love affairs with life, bringing them closer to home. It will be in my summary, but local and close-knit societies, communities, in my opinion, are the keys to the soil. And the soil may unlock for us opportunities to understand how quorum works. It may give us an understanding of how we can work together with other communities, other individuals, and multiply, compound our effect. Because if you're like me at all, you'll notice around you the many needs that we have as a people, as a society, and the soil is just kind of a place where all of our problems are being dumped, so to speak. The main thing I see as a challenge at the character level is our connection with our addiction to convenience. There is nothing easy about the place we find ourselves in. There is no easy solutions. There is only, in my opinion, what I call the sweat of the brow mentality. The soil has a need for an ingredient called the sweat of the brow, if you will. It's called action steps. It's called people coming together and prioritizing the things that are local, the things that are close to us, the intimacies that we surround ourselves with, and maybe even becoming aware of the need for counsel and consulting and learning and changing. God forbid that any of us would think about changing our habits, dealing with our addiction to convenience and our addiction to the chasing of the wind, where many of us have just chased the wind for so long, our hands are so full of nothing that we find ourselves in a place where we're really ready for change, really ready to make a difference. This is what I see happening in the society. I deal with people all day. I'm a businessman and a lover of people. My ministry credentials passed, but my desire to serve has not. And what I see alive in the people in your communities and mine is fear. I see this disconnectedness. I see this, nobody knows their neighbor. I see this, this individualism becoming so gripping that we can no longer come into an agreement. Everything is divided, 50% for, 50% against, 50% against, 50% for. One of the reasons why I really enjoy working with this group of people, Hilary and Stan and Marty and Jim Turner and Maggie, is that we spend time together. And though we have many differences, we've overcome those differences, and we're starting to work together with the need as the focal point. And our resource, our time is like powerful now because we have community and we have a people that got each other's back. And when I have a hard day, Marty will call me up. When Marty has a hard day, I'll call him up. And it's just happening. It's not by some plan. It's the need dictating our actions. And we are serious. I consider it a privilege to work with Hilary and Marty and Stan and Maggie and Jim Turner. And I even consider it a privilege to be part of my own life anymore, because every day I'm going out and making a difference. And as this group gets closer together and more people hopefully take on the challenge of becoming local, becoming intimate, becoming authentic, truly touching each other's lives, I think you'll see quick change. And I believe it's quick change that we need. In this last picture, I see the planning of people's escape from Earth and the pursuit of the distance as the priority. I've been approached by people with lots of money who would fund my research and development because they want a place on Mars. And they think that what I'm doing as far as sustainability, working in greenhouses, creating my own soil, and becoming a man of ingenuity and intrigue, they want to fund me for the purpose of creating colonies on Mars. I can't possibly, I think that's great for a hunk of people. Chase that dream, if you will. But my focus is turning inward and turning local and turning to community. And there's where we go. There's where we go. Back to the things that are close to us, the things that we are scientifically made of. It's the soil itself. We're all a byproduct of it. And it's so close and it sticks to you. Every day I get dirty. Every day I let the earth stick to me and the sweat of the brow pour from me because I'm into this. And it's close and it's intimate. And I think that if we take this if we see the pattern of what people have been dealing with in the past and are now forming exit strategies if they have the money from this planet, if we start turning that same ingenuity and that same intrigue inward to the soil itself, is it possible that we'll discover what is available to us that is close, that is obtainable, that is literally waiting for us to discover, and taking that discovery to the new level? I'm working with, at Antioch right now, I'm working with, I consider a byproduct of our chasing of the wind. The soil at the level of society looks a lot like this picture. It's dry, it's crusty, it has no life, it's just there. If we just go a little bit closer to home and we just start looking at the beauty that springs forth from every grain of, every aggregate, every pulling together of what is more alive than we are, which is the soil mycology. It's the fungi, it's the bacteria, it's all the microorganisms and so much that goes along with it. I consider it a privilege to work with Hilary because she can show me pictures of it and she can tell me how it works and what encourages it to work better. And I can talk to Marty. Marty would tell me a story about how they're all talking to each other and walking down a road in hand and literally transforming at the level of who we can be and who we can become. We're surrounded by their example of quorum. We're surrounded by their example of making things happen. I'm looking at a picture. We had rain 2 days ago. We got green grass growing already. How quickly the soil can respond. In the yard that I'm looking at, we have goats. I'm looking out a window right over the screen here. We have goats in the backyard. We have chickens and ducks running around the backyard. We have about an acre here in Oakview, which is just north of the river, nestled in Gladstone. And things respond quickly to a little bit of water, to a little bit of sunshine. Matter of fact, it won't be long, we'll be caught up in maintaining the quickness that nature can work. There it is, folks. It's kind of my summary that the life is in the soil, and when we can drain it and use it up, and that's what we are doing. Or we can drain it, recycle it, rejuvenate it. We can make it happen. And it's not a long, long road if we put the character issues in a place where it's our foundation. There's no longer just a desire to escape, but there is a desire to look forward and inward as well. And I'm anxious, actually, for the time that we get to answer some questions, because just like there is that difference between 50% for and 50% against in this world we're living in, there are unique perspectives. Everyone is valuable. Every perspective that people have is real. And when they are empowered to share those things with the power of the uniqueness of each human being, and if we can tap into the quorum that exists all around us and we imitate it, we can create a new world. I'm living in that possibility, and I'm creating it daily, and I am seeing results. And I could share those results with you. just for an instance, the bioreactors that we are building with Marty and Hilary and Stan and Jim and Maggie, and a whole slew of other individuals who are now getting interested in the things that are close to them. They are producing results. Last year at my greenhouse, I had 10 times more grapes than I ever had in the past. I had 600 to 800 pounds of grapes produced. My fig trees, which because I have greenhouses, I have a Mediterranean climate in one of my greenhouses. My fig trees produced hundreds of pounds where it was tens of pounds in the past. I attribute by observation that the Johnson Sioux compost that you will hear a lot about and the science that backs it up, I am tasting that result. I am financially gaining from that result. My sales slogan, so to speak, is I am taking over the world one backyard at a time. Every time I put a 4-pack together for someone to purchase of flowers or tomatoes or peppers or whatever, that Johnson Sioux compost and the inoculants that we can make from it, the teas that we can make from it, are in every little 4-pack I sell. And I can be a proud businessman to say, I'm taking over the world one backyard at a time. I'm in your backyard. This is my ingenuity. This is my sweat of the brow. This is my community putting this together. Would you like to be part of it? And I can honestly say there is an incredible swing towards people wanting to participate. My observation is that many just don't know where to start. They know it's time to start. They just don't know where to go or what steps to take. Well, that's the service I will provide for anyone who wants to get a little sweaty, get a little dirty, chase a chicken, examine what's going on in the world of all kinds of different plants. All of those things I offer you at Antioch Urban Growers. I offer you what I am harvesting, and that is hope. And I will suggest to you the things that I've seen and heard suggested to me. Let's come together. Let's talk this out. Let's make a run for making a difference. I want to thank you so much for letting me share. I think my 18 minutes are up and I feel complete. Only thing I want to know is, what do you think? How can we work together? What differences can we make? Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Mark. That was really wonderful. So Hilary, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the space to do this presentation. All right, so I'm Hilary, as Mark said. I got into the science of soil about a decade ago, and I have been doing a lot of experiments, had lots of failures. My aim is to learn from those failures each time going. So while, yes, I'm talking about things that are happening in regenerative ag, this is not just for farmers. Soil doesn't know if it's on a farm or around the church or in your backyard. Healthy soil is healthy soil. So yes, this is part of regenerative ag, but this is also in your backyard or in the green infrastructure in the city, et cetera. It's why it works or it doesn't work. So, you know, we're taught, might have heard Bob Berkebile talk about this, we're taught so many things in science as separate things. We're taught plants, but that's separate from weather, which is separate from soil. That's not the way it works. It's not the way it works in a garden. It's not the way it works in the universe. Why do I have this slide when I'm talking about soil? Well, by the end of this 20 minutes, you'll know why. At least that's my aim. And there's a lot of information to get through in 20 minutes. I'm going to go pretty quickly, but hang in there with me. So, okay, when we're kids, we're told, well, you put a seed in the dirt, you give it some water, maybe you give it some fertilizer, and boom, you've got a plant, you've got a stem, maybe a flower, some leaves, you've got roots, but basically what we're told is dirt is just the stuff that's holding the seed. And then we get a little older and we're shown this soil triangle. Ooh, okay, so we've got sand, silt, and clay. And in the middle, we've got loam. But this is really just about texture. So if you've got somebody selling you soil because they've looked at the soil triangle, they're missing about 99% of life on Earth. And this soil triangle tells you no more about soil than this picture of a cow tells you about a cow. It's soil attributes, but just physical attributes of the soil. This picture of a cow doesn't tell you how a cow functions. It doesn't tell you how the cow eats or what it eats, that it shouldn't be eating corn or soy and a CAFO. It doesn't tell you what happens if the cow doesn't have water. It doesn't tell you that the cow produces milk or how it produces milk. It doesn't tell you about the function of the cow any more than it tells you about the function of the soil. Well, what about chemical properties? We do chemistry tests on soil. The one on the left tells you about what's water soluble. And a lot of people think that this is what you should look at when you're figuring out fertilizer for your garden. But take a look at the one in blue. That's a Melic 3 extraction. Take a look at the difference in the numbers. So on the left, it's telling you for sulfur, you've got 2 parts per million in the soil. On the right, it's telling you got 12 parts per million in the soil. So if you're figuring out sulfur that you want to put in your soil and you go by the test on the left, you're going to really over fertilize in terms of sulfur. Calcium, it says you've got almost 21 parts per million. The test on the right says, oh, guess what? You've got over 4,000 parts per million. And you know what? That's actually a problem if you don't have enough organic matter. You've actually got too much calcium. You've got too much magnesium. The test on the left is telling you what can wash away. The test on the left, if you're only looking at water-soluble fertilizer, you're just looking at what can leach from your soil in the rain or with irrigation. Never use that test for determining fertilizer or mineral amendments in your soil. So the chemistry test is basically just telling you the potential of your soil, not how it functions. Ooh, this, you may have seen this before. This is the soil food web. This is from Elaine Ingham, the way she teaches the soil food web. And you've got lots of critters in your soil. It lists the trophic levels down there at the bottom. You've got plants that are feeding microbes, your smallest of microbes, your bacteria and your fungi. Those are then eaten by other predators and prey in this group. The one thing that's missing on this that I want to bring up today, so we've got the soil triangle that tells us texture, right? What the cow looks like. This tells us potential. So the potential of your soil or potential of what the cow can do. This is how the cow functions. This is how soil functions. This is what you want to be paying attention to. And I'll show you why. So the one thing that's missing from this, and I'm sorry if you can't see it because our faces are over here on the left, but there's the cow, and there should be a big old cow pat in this picture because this cow, this is your 4-legged microbial bank. When you've got a ruminant animal, cow, bison, goats, sheep, deer, that's a microbial bank moving across your soil. And it becomes really important because if you don't have it, you have to figure out how you're going to take the place of it. Cows evolved to eat crappy grass and leave microbes behind. A lot of people talk about cow manure in terms of the minerals you're getting from it. Well, only if those minerals are going into the cow. And you're not going to get the microbes if you're giving that cow wormer or antibiotic. That cow pie is going to oxidize. It's not going to give you your microbial community in your soil. So why are the microbes so important? Well, science has been making amazing leaps in what we know about soil. This guy up on the right, that's James White from Rutgers. He and his grad students are doing incredible work. This big blue thing in the middle, that is a root. And that cloud of blue around it is bacteria. And that bacteria is going into the root of the plant. It's been out in the soil mining minerals. It's going into the root of the plant. The plant is making a superoxide, stripping the mineral off, and then shooting it back out into the soil on a root hair. You don't need water-soluble mineral. Your microbes are going to mine that mineral and bring it to the plant. This is plant nutrient uptake. This is how it happens. Rhizophagy, this study of roots and microbes, rhizophagy just got its name 10 years ago. We didn't have these pictures. We thought that it needed to be water soluble. It doesn't need to be water soluble. This is how it works. You can see down there on the left, that bacteria going into the root stem, coming out of the root stem. We've also got ectomorphic mycorrhizae that are, so it's a fungus that's out there mining mineral in the soil and shooting it pretty much at the speed of light to that plant when the plant needs it. So the plant is making root exudates for what it needs, and the microbes are responding from the root exudates. And again, this is James White at Rutgers just doing amazing things. You should see the video. It's just so cool. This, by the way, is Pseudomonas in a root. Pseudomonas is going to go into that root tip. It's going to swirl around. Pseudomonas we used to think was pathogen, and if this root is on a plant that's unhealthy, it will act like a pathogen. Pseudomonas will go into the plant. Endophytes we used to think were a pathogen, not if the plant's healthy. Endophytes are not a pathogen. We're going to find that out on animals soon, but we don't know it yet. Pseudomonas is going to go into this plant. It's going to go all the way up through the structure of the plant. The plant is going to puff it out into the air through the stomata on the underside of the leaf. It's going to go up into the atmosphere, and it's going to catalyze water vapor into ice crystals. And those ice crystals are going to join together, and it's going to come down further in the atmosphere because it's getting so big, and it's going to turn into rain. This is how we stabilize our weather. This is how we get rain more often, a more gentle rain, and we avoid the whole drought flood cycle. This is how we change the weather and how we stabilize it to get us through climate change, still growing food outside. So the soil where you are is most likely damaged, whether it's the soil in your backyard or around the church or in the green infrastructure in the city or all the golf courses and lawns. We have 40 million acres of lawn around the country. And the number of farm acres is steadily going down, while the number of turf acres, et cetera, is going up. But here's the thing, unless you have one of these guys, unless you're like Mark, you have ruminants in your backyard, if you don't have a cow or a sheep or a goat, where are you going to get your microbes? And it's not that this cow walks across there once and, oh, you're good for microbes for the rest of time. That's not how it works. And most likely you don't have a backyard this big, so you don't have bison moving through. So how are you going to get your microbes? Well, that's why we're working on different ways of composting. And Marty's going to talk about the Johnson Sioux composter. We haven't actually gotten good compost from one here, but we've seen good compost from a Johnson Sioux in another part of the country. Hopefully this summer we start to see results from our Johnson Sioux that's actually showing us a good, diverse microbial community. This is a picture from Rodale. Once again, we've got stuff over on the side. I wasn't thinking about where the faces would show up on the screen. So Rodale has this picture. They have great information on making compost, and they have this picture with a thermometer in it, because if your compost pile gets too hot, you're going to cook your microbes. I mean, I don't cook my chicken to 160 degrees, but EPA makes any big composter take their compost to 180 degrees. Well, you've cooked all your good microbes. All you've got left is some actinobacteria that is in soil. That's a sign of your soil going anaerobic. And anaerobic is bad. Aerobic is good. It's got lots of oxygen. Anaerobic is bad. So I have seen great compost from compost piles that people just throw stuff in, and then eventually they go back and they get the stuff out of the bottom that looks pretty good. It looks like soil. I've seen better results from those compost piles than I have from any big composter. Now, you may need more compost than you can get in your backyard. So you may need to buy a truckload of compost, and that's perfectly fine. Buy that compost. If it's stinky, don't use it. Spread it out. Let the stink go away, because that's all the anaerobic activity, and it's making a lot of alcohols that can actually kill a lot of stuff in your yard. But you're going to have to get a good microbial community in it, because when you buy it, it's not going to have it. So this, by the way, is a soil food web test on compost that's made in a big compost facility. And without going into everything that's on here, we don't have time. Just the idea is, so they've taken the pile to 180 degrees. So the EPA says it's okay. You haven't actually killed off all the bad stuff. You still got, for some reason, the bad stuff lives longer than the good stuff. It's very unbalanced. It's highly bacterial, and it's going further bacterial. So it's got 50 or 60% organic matter, and you should only buy it if it's 50 or 60% organic matter, but this is not going to give you your microbial community. So that's why we're experimenting with these other ways of getting it. This, by the way, is if you want to add microbial community to your compost and see what happens. Organic Plant Magic is a product that a friend of mine up in Massachusetts makes. He developed it under the guidance of Jeff Lowenfels, who wrote these 3 books that are at the bottom of the screen. These are excellent books. These will tell you so much about what should be going on in your soil that probably isn't. Kingdom Aquaponics was developed by a friend of mine when he was working at Rodale under Elaine Ingham, our microbe goddess, and James Sotillo, the late James Sotillo, who was an amazing plant person. James worked across the country on really big projects, and he never found compost from a big composter that had a good microbial community. It's just the way it's done. I do make a product here that actually uses products from both of these companies when I'm making it. I'm not depending on my static pile to give me everything I need. And I can't put it in a bottle because there's so much alive in it. It's over 60% carbon, and most of that carbon is alive. If I put it in a bottle, it would very quickly suck up all the oxygen in the liquid in that bottle, and it would die and go anaerobic. So I actually have to make it and keep air pumps going on it when I bring it to you. That's a possibility if you want to do it. I'm happy to talk to people, but I'm telling you, these other products I know really well, and I trust them. They're made by very good people, and they have a standard of quality that's just excellent. Why am I talking about all this? Well, this was a couple weeks ago, and it was 64 in the afternoon, and this says it was going to go down to 22. It actually went down to 17 that night here in the city. This is what we've been seeing in our weather. And it's this whiplash weather. and we're trying to grow things outside, and we've got this whiplash weather. Last year, we had this is basically fall going between these extremes. We had it all the way up until mid-February, and then in mid-February, we got a polar vortex that was incredibly damaging. Right now, there is not, as our planet is warming, as our atmosphere is warming, there is not enough temperature difference between the equator and the poles. The poles are actually warming up faster. And because we don't have enough of a temperature difference, we're changing the thermals. So we're actually changing how air is moving around the planet, how temperature is changing around the planet as that air is moving. And so that polar vortex is this sweep of super cold air from the Arctic coming down. And last year, it killed off 99% of our peach production in Missouri, and it was similar in Kansas. So can we do without peaches? Yes, I'd rather not, but we can do without peaches. But guess what? We lost $300 million of citrus crop further south. This is the way all ag is going to go unless we take action, every one of us, and we change our local weather cycle, and we get our soil healthy. When we do that as a collective action, we make change. When we get our city to do it, when we get our churches to do it, when we get all the entities that we're a part of, when we get them all working on healthy soil, we can change this. This is 10 days. This is a difference in 10 days. My friend couldn't grow grass under these oak trees, so he asked me for help. He threw down grass seed one night. I came by the next day. I top dressed this lawn with compost. I didn't till it. I just put the compost on top. I hit it with a compost tea. 10 days later, he had a lawn. At the time, he knew I had COVID, so he sent me this picture to make me feel better, and it did. Keep your soil covered. We're told that of all the carbon that a plant pulls in, only 10% of it stays in the soil, 90% of it is sent back up into the atmosphere. When we have enough organic matter in the soil and we have a good microbial population in the soil, we can flip those numbers. We increase photosynthesis in the plant, and we can hold 90% of that carbon in the soil in the body of microbes. We're building carbon in the soil. We don't need biochar to do it. We're building carbon in the soil just with plant exudates and that good microbial community. And what is respired back out into the atmosphere, guess what? If you have another layer of plants over top of it, they're going to recapture that carbon and send it back through the system again. This is something we can do. And this is how we get back to this water cycle, this healthy water cycle from our healthy soil. That's Pseudomonas going up into the atmosphere along with water vapor, other aerosols from the plants. That's what catalyzes rain. So what we do with soil directly affects our weather. 40% of our weather is local. We can change that. So thank you again for being a part of this webinar. Please join us in this. Please make compost. You know, if you have a $500 loamy on your kitchen counter, or you have a pile of compost in the backyard that you just toss stuff in, you never really pay attention to, you're part of it. You can help this happen. You can help with how you vote. If you're voting for somebody who's supporting a farm bill that supports small farmers and not big CAFO systems, you're part of changing all of this. You're part of regenerative ag. When you support that small farmer, you're supporting regenerative ag. We can make the difference, and we need to. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say that out loud.
Oh, well, right. Thank you, Hilary. That was great. And we have a question from George Baggett. George?
Yeah, Hilary, that was an incredible, both of your presentations were, but Hilary, that was incredible. My question is about the in upper state New York. There are areas of the land up there that are so acidically affected that the pH of the soil around 5. And so to change that, the farmers are using lime or calcium hydroxide to do that. Now, it appears from what I'm seeing on your report, calcium is not the same. You know, it's like not the same thing. But how would you be approaching such analysis of soil with a pH of that? And primarily, it's mainly sulfuric acid from what do you call it? Power plants emissions.
Yeah, acid rain. So yes. Number one, our soils are different here because they're weathered from different rock. We have soils from limestone. Limestone has tons of calcium. Our city water has an average pH of 10 because we have so much calcium in it. You never want to solve for pH. So pH is not just what color turns on a test strip. pH from a lab is they are actually adding up cations. They're adding up what they find in the soil. John Kempf is an incredible farmer from Ohio. He has devised this circle, say, of macronutrients on the top, you have micronutrients on the bottom. You have cations on the left, you have anions on the right. So cations are positively charged, anions are negatively charged. That's chemical glue. John says, if you have too much of one mineral in any quadrant, you will be lacking some other mineral that's also located in that quadrant on that circle. So if you just add something without looking at what you really have on a soil test, or if you're looking at what's water soluble instead of what's actually there, you're probably going to cause more damage than good. Micronutrients are absolutely essential. I would not add micronutrients without knowing what you have. If you're on most of our soils are weathered originally from montmorillonite clay, that's from basalt. So most likely those minerals are in there. Now, it's entirely possible if you're in the city or if you've got farm fields that have been tilled and tilled and tilled, you've destroyed a great deal of what you had at one point, especially if it's extractive farming and you're just taking everything off the land after you harvest. So none of your plant stuff is going back in there. I would first get compost on it if you can. If you can't get compost on it, and the Johnson Sioux, by the way, is designed for farmers as a way of spending a few hours putting a compost pile together that you walk away from for a year. You put automatic watering on it and you walk away from it. And so it's a way for farmers to get a lot more compost without actually paying attention to it and turning it and all that sort of thing. Okay, so if you can't do compost for some reason, or if it's just horrifically expensive or you can't make it for some reason on your land, cover crops. Get a really diverse mix of cover crops. Christine Jones in Australia did her first look at what she calls the soil carbon pump. And she did a cover crop mix of 16 species and she measured the carbon she got from it and it was great. The next year she did a cover crop mix with 32 species in it. She got twice as much carbon. So this is the carbon quorum that Marty's going to talk about. That cover crop can do an incredible amount of good in the soil. I would retest for chemicals afterwards. That lab that those tests are done is Logan Labs in Ohio. I always use the same lab because I know how they're doing the tests, and they actually put their algorithms up on their website so you can see how they're getting their numbers. Also, the Bionutrient Food Association that's out of Massachusetts with Dan Kittredge, who's the director of it. Bionutrient Food Association has an agronomist. If you become a member, you can call that agronomist and ask questions. And they're really helpful. They're very good. They've taught me a lot.
Okay, we've got another,
Yes,
we've got a
sorry.
question from someone there on site at the church.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being here today. Mark, and Hilary as well, but Mark, you might be able to address this a little more specifically since you were a minister. I was wondering if you think that making the argument and convincing people that climate change, agriculture, soil health, etc., is part of being stewards of the environment is a good way to get social conservatives and even spiritual progressives on board.
Yes, yes. Agriculture, though I was raised on a farm and always grew things, until I started understanding the life in the soil and saw the assault on the soil and realized the consequences of that assault on the soil was now assaulting the human beings. As a minister, I had to take dramatic changes in my actions because this was no longer someone's just choice. Now it was a choice that was doing harm to those who would choose not to have harm done to them. This is a, we deal with so much with neighbors often in small little communities where we don't know each other. They're living in a something that happened 10 years ago with a neighbor. So there can be, we as humans can make a decision and absolutely change from that point on. So it's just a great time. It's an incredible time. No better time in history, in my opinion, than just change your mind and do so with the willingness of conversation with people whose our views are different than yours, because we are valuable and that value has to mingle. I call it cross-pollinating with my people. It's a plant thing, but I cross-pollinate with everyone I go into a relationship with. I just share, I receive, and I become something different, and I love it. Try it sometime.
Okay, we have a question from Jim Turner, who helped put this presentation together for the forum. Jim?
Thank you. Could you say something about how the soil biome helps in the sequestration of carbon? And should we worry that some say that none of it is permanently stable, and in other words, some of that carbon in the soil can be attacked by the soil, by what's in the soil, but nevertheless we can get good sequestration, I think. Could you comment on that?
Sure, absolutely. We have found really great stable carbon storage on tree roots deep, deep, deep within the soil. When you look at a tree, it's like looking at the top of an iceberg. What you're seeing in terms of carbon in the tree, that's a tiny part. That's 20% of the carbon that tree represents. The other 80% is below the soil. So that plant is taking the carbon out of the air, using what it needs to build, but the rest of it is being fed to microbes in the soil. And that's how it's in the soil. So when you kill the tree, you take that tree down or that plant down, it's not just the carbon above ground that is no longer growing and is no longer held in that fairly stable form. It's that you're now killing off all the microbes in the soil that were living on the root exudates. And especially if you come in with an earth mover and you move it, all of that stable carbon storage is going to be oxidized. Your organic matter oxidizes. That carbon is organic matter. Some of it's alive, some of it's not alive. But that's why grasslands are so terrifically productive, because yes, they use the carbon to grow, but they grow a lot more in a season than a tree does, generally. Not always. I mean, I won't go into it. I have a tree in my front yard that you wouldn't believe how quickly it grew. It's supposed to be a slow growing tree, but because it's got organic matter and good microbial community, it's growing really fast. So yes, carbon storage in the soil. We don't need to do something to get that carbon storage except give it organic matter and microbes. They do the carbon storage with the plant. It's the system, and we don't need to get in the middle of it. It's the system, it works.
I have a
Part of the planet,
question.
it might be different, but sorry.
It's sort of philosophical, which I think Mark would appreciate, but historically, especially when we were children and so on, dirt was nasty. We wanted to keep dirt away from us. We had no idea what was in there for the purposes you're talking about. Now, I see a tremendous analogy to the last 10 or 20 years that we finally discovered that all these bugs that we hated for so long are inside us. They're in our, what they call the microbiome. Is there not a strong analogy between what you're talking about for what nourishes plants and the microbiome inside us that we historically has thought was nasty and so on, which it is in some respects? But isn't there an analogy there about how some of these same bugs are our friends?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a really important point, because if we sterilize our soils, how do we get the microbes? And a lot of what we do, we're sterilizing the soil, and that's when acid rain can affect your soil. If you have enough organic matter, that goes away. It's really important. I mean, my great-grandfather, if my mom fussed at us for playing in the dirt, my great-grandfather would say, Velma, you have to eat a peck of dirt before you die. And, you know, he always had a backyard garden. We always had a backyard garden, but we didn't take it inside and spray it with bleach. You know, we brought it inside. Maybe we didn't even take it inside. You might just pick it off the plant and eat it right there. Yeah, it's got microbes on it. Every leaf you look at has microbes. When you make pesto, you're not even cooking that leaf. You're getting all the microbes on that leaf into your gut. That leaf is covered in microbes. There is this incredible world out there that we decided was the enemy. And it's not. 95% of the DNA in your body isn't yours. It's the microbiome in your gut. Are you really who you think you are?
Mark, do you have any response to that?
Well, my understanding from a religious perspective is that we were placed here to be stewards of the earth. And it goes way back to the very beginning, in my opinion. And it never was, well, maybe at some point it was all doing it for us, but at some point we had to steward this process. It was assigned to us, if you will. And maybe it just comes naturally. And maybe that's the hope that we have for recovery today, is that our original assignment was to be stewards of the earth. And maybe we just got off track and been running really hard in a direction that the brick wall is getting closer and closer and closer. And if we just take that perspective and say, I don't want to run into any more brick walls, take a hand next to you, meet a neighbor next to you and say, let's plant some flowers together. Let's do something together. The quorum is available all around us. And I think people are more hungry for it than they've ever been. Why don't we go for it? That's all. I think it's just they're waiting for us.
Thank you. We got another question from Ken. Go ahead.
Do not know if you're familiar with a book by David Montgomery called Dirt, The Erosion of Civilization. It's about 2007 when it came out, and he also gave a talk at the Land Institute, and he pointed out that there's a difference between dirt and soil.
Mhm.
And to him, dirt is dead soil. So don't confuse the two. So can either of you or both of you make a comment on the difference between dirt and soil?
Absolutely. I'm suggesting that book for a soils class at UMKC. It's here somewhere. The Fertile Crescent used to be fertile. It's now a desert. We have civilization just, we destroy the soil with farming and then we move somewhere else. There's a really big difference between dirt and soil. Dirt is dead. In landscape architecture, they say dirt is what's under your fingernails, but really dirt is just dead soil. If you buy topsoil, it's dead. It's dirt. Mark, what do you say?
I think our contribution fits right in. It's a conversation. You say the soil's alive and the dirt is dead. And I say, yes. I also say that the contribution of the human being, the sweat of the brow, so to speak, it's something, there's a statement that says, by the sweat of the brow shall you survive. Shall you really take over this earth and rule it in a way of empathy and equity and all the things that we're really looking for. What we contribute through this incredible machine that we are, I believe is important in an invisible way. And I think that we will discover more and more invisible attributes that are easy if we just be about who we were designed to be.
Thank you. Next week, of course, we're going to hear from Marty Kraft and Stan Slaughter as to how you can add nutrients to your soil, transform your soil, and what's being done locally to do that.